gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 15th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game S Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today is the most real romantic day of the year, the day we get the Xbox Business Update podcast. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host, the Game S Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
I'm feeling fantastic. I nailed Valentine's dinner last night.
Ooh,
I swear to God, if my partner doesn't wife me up, what's up, internet?
It's got to be happening. It's got to be happening. I did do those the little cakes that has the butterflies fly out, and the kids struggled a little bit, so they like half open, so only a couple of them fluttered out, and then we were able to get the rest to like slowly pop out eventually. But they're fun, and now the kids are just winding these little paper butterflies up and throwing them all over the house now, which is actually kind of a nightmare. Now I got these things everywhere.
You could start hiding them in books, Grubb.
Yeah, God, that's like actually a shoot good idea. I would love that. I love the idea of scaring people that just get books off my shelf. Those are my books. Ask for permission first.
Oh, okay. Here's the easy way to get Dan Reichert.
Okay.
If Dan Reichert ever goes into your house, preload these butterflies into a video game case.
Oh, there you go.
Because I feel like Dan's curiosity be like, oh, I've never, like, you have this game? I have this game too. Open, and then
okay,
it's
that's a good idea.
Hit by a butterfly.
Honestly, like we send them games all the time for Blight Club. We could just put a few in there for the Blight Club game. I guess I would like to capture it the moment it happens.
Right.
Is the snake in a can trick, is that still a thing? Is that something has that ever happened to you? It's never happened to me, so I assume it's not like a going concern.
It's never happened to me, but I can't say that I've often opened up a can or a jar of peanuts in an excited manner.
Yeah, like how often am I opening like a tube-shaped tin? I'm not like I haven't opened a new thing of like tennis balls in like 20 years, so I can't think of anything else.
We have to send Dan a can of snakes.
Yeah, right? Okay. All right, fantastic. I love it.
But it's going to get into his eye, and then he won't be able to play because he can't see.
Dr. Ryan's like, yeah, he's got a boo-boo on his eyeball. Oh, boy. Hey, yesterday there was a lot of news. Today it feels like, where the fuck's the news? And I think everyone's kind of holding for this Xbox thing. There's plenty to talk about. We'll get into all of it here in a second. But mostly, I don't know. I'm like, hey, things slow down a little bit on this side of things. That's fine with me. I got a ton of games I'm still playing. How are you feeling about, like, looking at the games you played this year, and like when you get to the end of the year, like, are a lot of these you think are going to end up on your game of the year list?
I haven't really been looking at the latter half of this year, Grubb, and I feel like this is going to be another good year for game releases. I do think the top half of this year, or even the top 2 months of this year, have been incredibly stacked, that I think they will sustain their momentum. Like, I feel like Prince of Persia is unique enough of a thing that it'll stay in like our minds till December time. Same thing with like a Dragon.
Yep.
Especially a big game that's coming out next week,
based
or
on the demo.
embargo comes out.
Yeah,
yes, based on the demo.
It's going to be a big thing, I think, for a lot of people at the end of the year.
Yeah. And I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake will get its revenge for me cutting it off the list one year of GB Game of the Year.
Could be Rebirth's year after all. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with, hey, where is that Nintendo Direct? That Nintendo Direct was maybe supposed to happen this morning. It just clicked over to 11 a.m. Eastern time here. And based on my chat, I think I'm going to say that it's not happening yet. Looking over here, no one's talking about, hey, this thing just happened. You guys should go watch this. that was only ever a rumor, was never confirmed. Nintendo never said anything about it. I'll say that I never knew a date for sure, Jan. What I was hearing for about a month ago was, yeah, they should do something by the middle of February. That's what they're aiming to do. And I felt pretty good about that. And I still feel pretty good about that. I think we'll probably get something. Now, earlier this week, Jan, I did hear, and I hate when this happens because it's like, God, I gotta like go out and say this, and everyone's gonna be like, you're just trying to cover your butt, or we're mad about this, so we don't even want to hear it. But the Xbox business update is something that maybe threw Nintendo a little bit for a loop. That was something Microsoft moved up, and Nintendo was like, oh, that's happening the day we were going to do our Nintendo Direct. Maybe we might delay it. This was a conversation that 100% did happen, at least at Nintendo of America. And that I do think it's a possibility here that they are now at least going to wait until sometime after this update. The question there, Jan, is it's a little bit weird because they wouldn't do it on a Friday because that's Saturday in Japan. So,
Okay.
and the podcast doesn't happen until quite a bit late in the day today. So, barring some later today version of this Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase dropping on YouTube, maybe they just move it to next week. I don't know, Jan. What do you think?
I think probably just move it to next week. I think as soon as those Xbox podcast rumblings got put out into the ether, I think it's a wise move from Nintendo to hang back and just wait till next week.
Right.
Whatever type of presentation they're going to bring out. Like, I don't think they're going to announce anything about the Switch 2 yet, but maybe this is a smaller Direct. And no matter whatever the size or news that is going to be revealed in this podcast, I would wait till next week.
Yeah, it's
maybe Nintendo's going to make their own podcast.
Maybe. Like we're just speculating, so I don't know. I wouldn't be like completely shocked if they just like right after that podcast happens, they put out the Direct as just a video real quick with no announcement. They would do that for mini Directs and partner showcases. They don't announce this beforehand necessarily. So that it could happen. We'll see. But it's just as likely what you said, Jan, that it just, take it till next Tuesday, next Wednesday. No harm, no foul there. Maybe there's something that was going to shadow drop. It doesn't. If they delay it to next week, probably not, because that would maybe screw things up. So we'll see. Or maybe that game, the game that's going to shadow drop, does still just come out today. Suddenly it shows up on the eShop and someone has to put out a YouTube video instead, and it kind of ruins their day. It does seem like this is something where it's like, it is a last minute decision, throwing a wrench into the works.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was more promotional material for Mario versus Donkey Kong, just to get that in front of more eyes, perhaps. Yeah. But even if that was the case, like, that game's out now. I
think it's out Friday. So yeah, it's gonna be out tonight. It's gonna be out like, the late release tonight, I think. We'll get to the review roundup of that here in a second. But as far as Nintendo first party stuff going, I mean, it really feels like a partner Direct because Nintendo has several games that they've announced previously that they keep putting out YouTube trailers for. There's been a lot of stuff for Mario versus Donkey Kong. Obviously, that game coming out this week, that you would expect that. But Princess Peach Showtime, which comes out next month, that's been getting a lot of YouTube like updates over the last week or so, including some like, hey, here's a reveal, like all these other versions that Princess Peach can dress up as in the game. Things that you would be like, hey, this could fit into a Direct. Now they're just putting them out as YouTube trailers. Sounds like Nintendo first party stuff is not going to be showing up in a Direct anytime soon necessarily. Okay. But hey, I'll still be excited about a partner Direct. A lot of things could happen there. Feels like, depending on what is happening between Microsoft and Nintendo in this partner Direct, a Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, all that stuff could still show up in a partner showcase. So we'll see.
Pentiment would be very good on the Switch.
Pentiment would be fantastic on there. All right, so let's get to the roundup. Reviews are in for Mario versus Donkey Kong. This comes from Jim Norman over at Nintendo Life, who put these reviews together. Thank you, Jim. The iconic Game Boy Advance puzzle platformer Mario versus Donkey Kong is all set to swing onto Nintendo Switch later this week. A free eShop demo has been doing the rounds for a while now, but today we have got our first impressions of what to expect from the full game. Yes, the critics have had their say, and we are here to give you the critical rundown. Starting with Eurogamer giving it a 4 out of 5, which particularly praises the way that the levels progress. It's a lovely package and another pleasant stop on the Switch's protracted farewell. The more I played, the more I found myself collecting fragments of memories of the Game Boy Advance original, which I thought I had lost. IGN dropped slightly from the Eurogamer score, giving it a 7 out of 10. It shouts out the new visuals and co-op mode, but bumps up against the game's lacking difficulty curve. Mario vs. Donkey Kong might not be as polished as a mini Mario toy fresh off the assembly line, but it's just as full of charm and fun to play with. GameSpot gave it a 7 out of 10, saying, recapturing the clever aha moments of puzzle platforming that made its predecessor so memorable, all while packing distinct visual improvements and quality of life tweaks that bring out its charm like never before. And then Polygon said it was a good time, but would have preferred to see the Game Boy's Donkey Kong 94, obviously. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a good game, and this is a good new version of it. There's just one problem. It's not the best game in its series. And yeah, 100%. I hope Donkey Kong 94 just pops onto a Game Boy NSO here in the next month or so. That would be great. Doesn't seem like that's necessarily going to happen. Any interest in Mario versus Donkey Kong? Suddenly is a very busy time of year. Yeah.
Nope.
It's a puzzle platformer, Jan. Did you ever play Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy?
Negative. It was not interested.
Yeah.
I don't think I've hot take here, Grubb, or hot confession here. I don't think I've ever liked Donkey Kong.
Wow. Okay. That's fair. Is that based on like the Donkey Kong Country games or what?
The games have always looked gross and terrifying to me.
Oh, okay.
I think
that's probably the Donkey Kong Country games then. The Silicon Graphics visuals.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's because it reminds me of claymation.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, it's definitely what they would do is they would design the characters on a Silicon Graphics workstation and then basically just export those as fucking JPEGs or something and PNGs. And they're like, all right, now this is a sprite in a Super Nintendo game. And like that, like losing the detail in that translation was weird. I was 100% there for it. Now, Donkey Kong 94 is like a secret awesome game. Well, at the time it was a secret awesome game. Now it's like an obvious, well-known awesome game where it's like it tries to like present itself as the arcade game in the first 4 levels, which, you know, the Donkey Kong arcade game was 4 levels. And then after that, it's like, oh, it keeps going and turns into this really great puzzle platformer where Mario, you play as Mario and you have the move set of what like eventually would be in Super Mario 64 with like the side jump and the backflip and all this stuff. And it's like it's a really excellent game. Now, Mario versus Donkey Kong is a sequel to that. I thought at the time when I thought at the time it looked weird, so I didn't play it all that much. And then when I did eventually play it, I was like, it loses some of the magic of Donkey Kong 94. I'm still going to check in on this, but it's a busy time. I have been still playing a lot of Balatro when I'm not playing like a dragon. So who knows? But when it comes to the Switch, Jan, I am feeling like, hey, I do want to spend a little bit more time on my Switch. I did pick it up last night to install a game on it. And I was like, you know, I'm already kind of feeling a bit nostalgic about the Switch. And that, like, now might be the time to do that, because when we get a Switch 2, it might just be like such a continuation of the Switch that it's like, oh, that never went away. So I'm like, I think I want to spend some time with my Switch, kind of look back. And if they put out a new game for me to play here and there, I'll be pretty happy with it. But overall, this is kind of what I was expecting from Mario versus Donkey Kong. You think this is going to set the world on fire or anything?
No, not at all. I think it's going to be another Mario title. It's like, oh, cool, this is here. I'll pick this up. And it's going to make the nostalgia rounds for sure of people that remembered it, played it, or at least have always wanted to play it, and now they have a better means to do so.
Yeah, there's a lot of children out there that are like, no, this is better than Donkey Kong 94. And they're just wrong, but they're out there. All right, ahead of its business update, Microsoft reportedly told staff every screen is an Xbox. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. Microsoft reportedly told employees that it views every screen as an Xbox ahead of its much-anticipated business update. A recent internal town hall meeting, which has been reported on previously, reportedly saw Xbox president Sarah Bond proclaim that every screen is an Xbox, according to a new account by Inverse. Bond is then said to have discussed Xbox's strategy on existing on multiple kinds of devices and its greater ambitions of becoming the #1 cross-platform gaming company. To illustrate the idea of an Xbox on every screen, Bond reportedly showed images of breakout Xbox and PC hit Pal World running on tablets, TV screens, monitors, and handheld devices. Internally, employees expressed surprise at seeing so much Pal World and joked about the possibility of an Xbox handheld, which has also been rumored, according to Inverse. Microsoft's gaming division will publish an Xbox business update today, February 15th, via an Xbox podcast set to release at noon Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I mean, I think this does feel like the strategy that they're going for, Jan, of like, hey, what we want to make Xbox just be... Okay, they spot the problem. The problem is they've been able to sell a $500 piece of machinery to about as many people that want to buy a $500 box. And that's not just Microsoft. That's Microsoft and Sony. I think we're going to get to a story here with Sony in a second about like them having a little bit of a fallout from their latest earnings report that plays into this. But Xbox is like, hey, we can keep trying to bang our head against the wall of trying to get new people to spend $500 on a console, or we can find a solution to bypass that and reach people who will never, ever spend that money up front to start playing games in an Xbox ecosystem. Now, I mean, I get that, but I also think it's very hard. Once people spend that $500, that's the thing that keeps them invested in the ecosystem, right? They're like, they are pot committed. And if they could, I'm over here playing games through Xbox, and it's just this thing I access games through on whatever device I'm using, people won't feel that much of an attachment to it. So, do you think this can work? Do you think they're going to lose something in this translation?
I think they're going to gain a significant audience, a casual audience for sure, by treating every screen as an Xbox. But you definitely do lose the buy-in and the commitment of like, okay, I bought this console, now I'm going to stick to this console. I think you're quickly going to get the streaming fatigue that a lot of us get because of all these, like the numerous multiple streaming outlets. Like you get your Prime Video, you get your Tubi, you get your Pluto, you get your Crackle, you know, all these hot services,
hot crackles,
and then you're hot crackle, and then you're just stuck there wondering and have the choice paralysis of like, what do I watch? And sometimes if your internet connection's a little bit funky, you can't even watch something. I feel like that could definitely be the case moving forward with Xbox if they decide to go like through an app-based thing where they are just on TVs or just on like a small Roku-like device where this shit doesn't even work right now.
Yeah, and I think like obviously I think they're thinking about trade-offs. They have spent a long time catering to an audience that cares very deeply about the Xbox brand, maybe to a fault, but that's an audience that will spend a lot of their discretionary budget on video games. And so it's like, okay, yeah, maybe it's a smaller audience, but it could potentially be more money. Now they're going to an audience that is maybe, for lack of a better term, more casual and saying, hey, we're going to bring the games to where you are. All you need to do is bring an interaction device that you're comfortable with, whether that's your smartphone or if you want to connect a controller to your TV. That's the last mile here. If you do that, then we're off to the races. And I mean, I think they're probably right. They might know better than I would that there are enough people out there like that are ready and waiting to do exactly that. That will then become lifelong people who spend money on their products through that service. And that's going to make this all make sense for them. I think back to, and maybe things have changed since this, but I think back to the Wii, where it's like, yeah, Nintendo got the casual audience out there and they bought 3 games for their Wii and then they never touched it. Well, they kept playing it, but they kept playing those same games over and over again. And they're like, I'm not going to keep buying games. I already spent the money that I'm going to spend on this thing to have fun. That's already happened. And I still have a great time with Wii Sports. I don't need to have another one of these. Now, maybe the casual audience that Microsoft has identified that exists out there is very different from that one that was on the Wii that I just described. And that's probably true. But I don't know. Does that sound like a concern to you, Jan?
I feel like this is maybe giving Microsoft too much credit and being too hopeful in the situation of where I'm thinking that is the mobile market much bigger than we are anticipating or thinking of, that they're going to factor in that much into these plans. And I just keep thinking about the Activision Blizzard King acquisition and how much Call of Duty Mobile is big, and you know, what the fuck is the King game? Not Bejeweled.
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush.
Yeah.
and that's a big thing. And if they can wind up catering, Scout, I know you have things to say right now. If they can cater the experience on a mobile platform on your phone to be streamlined enough, then I think they may be able to like capture that casual audience better on mobile than they could on like your Samsung TV, perhaps. And that same casual audience that like only has the one thing for their Wii, I think those people have become more savvy to seek out more types and styles of games. Because I'm thinking like my partner has like a subset of her friends that all play Call of Duty together, and I thought like, oh, maybe I'll squat up with y'all. And then they pulled out their phones and they were like, no, we play Call of Duty on mobile on our phones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's wild.
That is wild. And there are a lot of people out there that do that, absolutely. And they already bought their big expensive device. It is their phone. They're not going to buy another one. I think there's two routes, and maybe they actually end up doing both of these, but there's two routes that I see as like a potential for Microsoft to make all this stuff work in their favor. The one is the mobile route that you just said, and that's something they talked about, where they're going to have a Microsoft Xbox store that they want to have available on iOS and Android that you can get Call of Duty and all these things through. And you know, that's something that regulators might might empower them to do, and enforce Apple and Google to say, hey, you have to host these alternative stores on there. And if they do that, Microsoft will be in a position to have one of the bigger stores. Now, bigger does not necessarily mean it's going to be anywhere near the default pre-installed store like the App Store. It's probably never going to get anywhere close to that, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's a very tough uphill climb to convince a lot of people to sideload in another store, sign in. Every small little hurdle that you described there, every obstacle, you lose, 80% of the people that might have done it. And it's like you lose another 80% until you're left with, I guess, 1 million people have installed this compared to the hundreds of millions that have these devices. But maybe they have a plan there to get around all that. I don't know. The other side of it is this like handheld route, but it's like, how do they get to this handheld route? And, it's Microsoft. They make Windows. The solution if I were in charge and I was like, hey, this is what you need to do to make this all happen, would be let's find a way to have a version of Windows, and maybe this goes back to Windows ARM or something like that. They've tried this in the past. That's why I'm like skeptical about this as well. But have a version of Windows that can run really well on handhelds, not necessarily ARM handhelds. That can be x86, but maybe also run on televisions, so that you're not going through the Samsung OS, whatever they use. They don't even use Android. They use something else. But like Tizen or something, whatever it's called. Tizen, I think it is. There's like all these TVs that have their own OSs, Roku and Google OSs. If Microsoft could have their version that's like, no, Xbox is just built in and it works and it's a very seamless experience and you are in our ecosystem now, and we will offer this to TV manufacturers for free, or we'll even incentivize them by including 6 months of Game Pass if you buy a certain TV, and now it's just our ecosystem in there and it works well. That's what I would go for, and I think that's a potential solution here. It's Microsoft, though, and I think they would struggle to be able to produce an OS that would work well on TVs. Maybe even, they're struggling right now to get Windows to make sense on handheld computers, and that's a computer. So they have uphill climbs in every directions, which is why when they talk about we are like looking past the box, I'm like, yeah, I get that, but the box works. You've sold 27 million of those, and none of this other stuff is proven. So I think they're looking at a lot of opportunities, but there's a chance that none of them could work. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just peculiar to that. It almost seems like they're abandoning the box that has served them well and gotten them to this point. And then the rest of everything that they're pitching and trying to do is all uncharted territory, specifically for Microsoft. We could look at other Microsoft branded handhelds or pocketable devices, the Windows Phone, the Microsoft Zune, and middling success, I'd say. Not super popular.
The Surfaces
have good. Exist yet.
The Surfaces have good hardware software integration in a lot of cases, not across the board. Some of those Surfaces were like that dual screen Surface was Android and things like that. But the Windows version still had a lot of good integration. So they've done some of this stuff in the past.
Yeah, I listen. I feel like talking about weird little handhelds to you and I, probably the worst two people to talk about them to because of our just penchant to just gawk and look at any little thing with a little screen and little keyboards. Because hey, I'll tell you, I'm still thinking about picking up a PlayStation Portal. That is a potential Microsoft Pocket Xbox console or whatever sounds very incredibly appealing. I just don't think that sounds super appealing to the wider gaming audience.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it does. Despite seeing the PlayStation Portal constantly sold out,
Right.
I don't know if the Xbox audience, other maybe like, hey, they're going to bundle in 6 months of Game Pass into it, so you kind of have free games with your device. I could see that being acceptable, but I just don't know what that looks like, and I just don't know if Microsoft is able to produce that actual device.
Yeah, and I do think, like I mentioned it already, but that last mile problem of like, hey, it is pretty easy to get to stream games to people's homes, and these days it looks and works pretty well, but most people don't do it. And I think most people don't do it because actually connecting a controller to their TV is just enough of a hassle that they're like, never mind. I don't want to do that. It's Bluetooth. I got to go in the menus on this TV and connect a controller via Bluetooth to this TV. What is that even? This is the casual audience that we're talking about, and they might already have the controller in their home. They don't even have to go out and buy one. But I think that those small little things where it's like, if the TVs came with a controller, that would be different. But that hasn't happened yet, and it doesn't. We don't know if Microsoft has a plan to solve that, or if they even did do that, whether or not that would actually matter. If people be like, oh yeah, I don't know what I did with that controller. I threw it. I don't even know why that was there. I threw it off into a closet and I never looked at it again. I think there's still a lot of questions about changing people's behavior and even lubricating that process by making it setting it all up so that when you turn on the TV, you're immediately in an Xbox ecosystem and you have the controller. Even if all of that worked together, I don't necessarily know that that's okay, now people are going to be playing Fortnite there, and when they spend money on microtransactions, we're going to get that money. I don't know.
I feel like they would have to hit it, and it'd have to be amazing from the jump. And I just don't think.
Yeah,
I don't think they're capable of that, Grubb.
Yep, I think that the history would suggest that they would need a lot of time to get things right, and I think that would be enough to discourage everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. And it also feels like this sudden approach or this strategy that they're approaching on now of every screen is an Xbox or this possible portable device. It seems like this has come up in maybe the past month or so, rather than something that they've been planting. They've definitely been planting wanting Game Pass everywhere. Mm-hmm. But in terms of what you're presenting, Grubb, of trying to change people's behavior, I think Apple even tried to do that with Apple TV and saying hey, you can hook up your Bluetooth controllers and play Apple Arcade here. This is a great way to check out Apple Arcade. And unfortunately, not a lot of people are checking out Apple Arcade's
Apple's really good
offerings.
at changing people's behavior, actually. Apple's one of the better companies that here's a new thing, and if you don't have it, you're going to feel like you're missing out. Microsoft is not good at that. Microsoft does not make people feel like they're missing out on a lot of these things, or else they would have been able to bring HoloLens to market before the Apple Vision Pro, even though the Apple Vision Pro is apparently causing migraines and burst blood vessels and all this stuff. That thing's still going to be a success. People are still going to end up
getting the right people. They're getting the right people.
All right. Over at Sony, its shares fell the most it has fallen in 2 years after it said the PS5 growth has likely peaked. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. Sony shares recorded their biggest intraday fall since February 2022 after the company said the PS5 sales growth had likely peaked. As reported by Bloomberg, Sony shares fell as much as 8.4% on Thursday and closed down 6.5% following the publication of the company's latest quarterly financial results. While Sony had previously hoped to ship a record 25 million PlayStation consoles during its current fiscal year ending in March, it now expects to miss that target by 4 million units. It had also forecast a gradual decline in PS5 unit sales from next fiscal year onwards, and said it has no plans to release any new entries in major franchises like God of War, Spider-Man, and others during the 12-month period ending in March 2025. If the platform has already peaked in growth, then the outlook could be much grimmer than what we had in mind for its game business. And this is where we kind of enter the conversation, Jan, and it's like, yeah, this is something that I think is setting off some alarm bells for a lot of investors, where gamers are looking at that statement about, for the next year, no new entries in God of War, Spider-Man, and other franchises that are like that. And that's like a concern, because people were already like, well, we got Spider-Man last year, but they must be reloading for next year. And it's like, no, that's not even the case. So fans are feeling pretty antsy because they like a lot of first-party Sony games. Investors are like, hey, the PS4 was big and very good. Now we need growth. It needs to be even bigger. And it's like, it's not even necessarily stagnating. It feels like it might not catch up to the PS4 or surpass the PS4 suddenly, which is something we assumed as a given last year, where it's like, no, it's going to catch up to that. And it's like, well, the way it's going right now, by the end of this generation, it very easily could, especially what Sony is saying, where they're expecting slower PS5 sales next year. And they're already like going to miss their target for this year. That suggests that the PlayStation business overall in the long term from PS4 to PS5 is contracting. At the very least, it is stagnating. And that is not great news for Sony, which makes a lot of its money through PlayStation. Now it is making more revenue than it ever has before. It made $10.8 billion, I think, in the last quarter, a huge amount of money. But their profits were down 25% year over year. Now they're looking at like, okay, we have this money coming in. We're gonna take profits. We're gonna figure out how to make that happen. But that's when they begin talking about all these other things, like, hey, we're gonna get more aggressive with putting games on PC and all this other stuff. We're gonna try to find ways to make more money from the things that we're doing. But this is like, it goes back to, hey, it's not all green over on the other side. When we were talking about Xbox for the last few weeks, because of the reports that some of those games might be going to PlayStation, it's not like, hey, Sony has won the console war. Now it's all clear sailing from here. It is PlayStation won the console war, and oh boy, now what? There is no obvious answer. They are in a situation where they're looking around like, we might have to do something more drastic than we originally thought. And that's how we get back to a point of like, yeah, PlayStation is the clear top dog when it comes between Xbox versus PlayStation, but even Sony might have to consider doing things more drastically. Is that how you read this, Jan, when we go through all these statements and the results from investors?
Yeah, I think so, Grubb. I think that is like the part of the motivations for what Sony is trying to do now while they're in this waiting limbo period. And I'm just thinking that, like, I believe a lot of people that have picked up a PS5 that are not like playing their PS5 every single day or are up to date on the newest hot releases have just picked it up for like the one or two titles. For a lot of people, that was Hogwarts Legacy. For whatever reason, the marketing was really good that people thought you had to pick up PS5 specifically.
Yep, they did good with that.
There is like the Horizon freak audience that we have yet to understand. But also the audience that picked it up solely for Spider-Man, or they're waiting for something like The Last of Us 3.
And then they're going and they're playing all the games they play online with their friends that they were playing on the PS4, and they're continuing to play Apex Legends and Fortnite and Call of Duty. And for a lot of people who didn't feel need to go get the Spider-Mans and some of these other games you mentioned, they're probably just still playing on the PS4. And that's like the other thing here is that the diminishing returns in terms of like the kinds of games you're able to play on from one device to the next the returns have been so diminished that if you are already playing Fortnite on your PS4, you're probably not rushing to go spend another $500 to play Fortnite on your PS5. Yeah, it'll look better. Yeah, it'll run better. You get almost no other benefits. You're still playing with your same friends. It is still the same game. All the features are the same. These companies are like, okay, so how do we get people excited to buy these systems? And there continues to be no obvious answer other than for PlayStation, spend $350 million making new games. Hey, people will feel FOMO if they are not able to get Spider-Man 3, because we're going to spend so much goddamn money on it. You're going to feel like you are missing out on an event. And that does work, but that increases the risk, and it's increasing risk while also the returns for Sony might potentially be diminished because the PlayStation 5 might not sell as good as the PS4. So they're selling to fewer people and their profits are down. So it's like, yeah, they are selling better than ever in some ways. In some ways they aren't. But regardless, the stagnation is a problem because the costs are going up. Inflation is a problem. So everything, the costs are going up in other ways as well. And the games themselves, they increase the price, but not enough to keep up with all these other costs. So yeah, it's a precarious situation for everybody, but especially for these big companies like Sony and Microsoft that are looking for a pathway forward and have yet to find it.
Grubb, do you think the Insomniac leaks have wound up having a bigger effect than we initially thought, where folks are specifically looking at Insomniac or these Marvel tie-in games or Marvel games in general and thinking like, oh, I really like the folks that make Spider-Man. I can't wait till Wolverine comes out. And then they see like the general timeline of things where Wolverine isn't even projected to come out until 25 at the earliest. That a lot of those people are just like, well, now I'll wait. And also with the staggered release of Final Fantasy Rebirth, and I forget what the next one is, Final Fantasy Revengeance, that's what they should call
it. they did say the name of the one after Rebirth already, didn't they? I thought they did. I don't remember what it is either.
I don't know. But I feel like unfortunately a lot of people thinking like, oh, I'll just wait till all of them come out, not knowing that like, dog, it's gonna take a hot 15 years for all of them to come out. And yeah, I think the initial COVID FOMO of trying to pick up a PS5 has already died down. That for a lot of people, it's like if you didn't already have one, I think you figure out a reason why you don't need one. And I definitely think that devices like Steam Deck and Asus Roger have kind of interrupted that gaming space of like, well, I can get more games over here, and then some of those PlayStation games will eventually come out here too. I don't know, that's like where my head is at with it.
I think you're onto something, because I think for the people that could not find one during the pandemic, you had to come up with a story you had to tell yourself for why you didn't need one, and then it's very easy to start believing that. And then it gets to the point, well, I'll wait for the game I really care about. Maybe that's Rebirth for a lot of people. Maybe that like shakes loose a lot of sales. But then you start to see, well, man, the PlayStation 5 is on sale pretty frequently. And it was on sale a lot last year, a ton. And we see now, like Sony has explained that, like they were trying to get to that 25 million number, and they were like doing everything they could to make that happen. So they were very frequently working with retail to cut the price of the PS5, so that they got very aggressive on that. And that was one of the reasons that their profits were down, is because they got aggressive on pricing. So their profits should be back up next year. But they got very aggressive with it, and yet Sony still didn't hit their mark. And people, I think, began thinking, well, I've waited this long. I did spend that money instead on a Steam Deck or something like that. And that's not going to be a lot of people. But whatever they did, they're like, okay, I've waited this long. Well, I'll just wait for the Slim. And then they waited for the Slim, and now there's talks of a Pro. Well, so while I've waited this long, I'll just wait for the Pro. So Sony might be hurting them on that side, hurting themselves on that side as well.
I have a friend that did the same exact thought process, Grubb. He messaged me and said, I really want to get Rebirth. Should I get the Slim or wait for the Pro? And I'm like, dog, I don't even know if a Pro's coming out. Go get the Slim right now if you can get it for cheap. And then he wound up twiddling his thumbs and still has not picked up a PS5. So I think that use case of the person kind of waiting to pick up a PS5 continues to go on, as there's this general limbo of like, when are the big PS5 exclusives coming out, and am I playing it on the best possible version of the PS5?
Yep.
Or am I like waiting to get a deal on like the old PS5s?
Yep. And Michael O'Leary in chat points out that like Sony didn't say, hey, we're in the second half of the PlayStation 5's life cycle. And people did take that in a pretty negative way, because I think the original translation in a lot of places was, we are in the later stages of the PS5. And I think that does sound a little bit more grim. But no, we're entering year 5 of a console that's probably going to have an 7 to 10 year life cycle. So this is, they mean it in that way. The actual concerning thing is them telling investors that they expect to sell fewer PlayStation 5s next year than they did this year, and that they just missed their target by 4 million. And now, like, I was looking at it, and originally I was like, they should get past the 21 million number that they set for this fiscal year by the end of March. But I think they're at like, are they at 16 million or 18 million? I think they're around there. Either they have 3 to 5 million to go. And a lot of that's going to come down to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth pushing a lot of PS5s. And that's probably going to happen, but it could be close, honestly. It could be close to get to 21 million. So, yeah, there is like, hey, if their business is contracting on the PlayStation side of things compared to last generation, that is going to scare a lot of investors, and then that is going to handcuff Sony on what they're able to invest in. We already see that fewer and fewer games are getting green lighted across the industry, and Sony's going to be in a situation where it might have to pick and choose a little bit more because it has a little bit less leeway because investors are asking for bigger returns more quickly. And it's just, it is tough. It's a tough business to be in one of these console manufacturers. And it's, and if we are looking at this industry through the prism of like, as goes Microsoft and Sony, so goes gaming, there's reasons to be like, this is concerning. I think, as always, for me, the silver lining, actually not even silver lining, the bright sky over here is there are great things happening across the industry that have nothing to do with Sony and Microsoft. Great games coming out all the time. Yeah, Microsoft taking a little bit of credit for Palworld. Palworld would have done just fine without Game Pass. And then like Helldivers 2, doing great. That's a Sony published that thing, but that's doing great on Steam. And then there's a million other things popping off on Steam, and Nintendo's going to have a new hardware here pretty soon. So there's a lot of things that are going to change the landscape here very quickly, so that this conversation that we're having right now might not even be the predominant conversation about the state of the industry here very soon. But as it stands today, these are the big concerns facing down both Sony and Microsoft, and they are going to have to figure it out. Microsoft seems to have a very aggressive, let's change up everything strategy. Sony's might be a little bit more handcuffed in that as well, in that they can't, they have the thing that works. They have to find a way to make it work even more and make even more money, instead of abandoning that and going and trying a bunch of different things. It's like, no, you got to stick with PlayStation. That's the business that makes us money. So we'll see.
It feels like Microsoft and Sony inadvertently and probably purposely also played a weird game of console chicken, only to dramatically go into two different SKUs.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that was weird how like earlier it was like, we're going to make basically the same console, and are we going to
last?
Are we going to set
10 years?
Yeah, and are we going to set this price to $600? No, we're going to do that. We're going to do it's like, no, 500. Shit, we're going to do 500 too. And it's like, yeah, like they're definitely like, they were head to head, face to face, nose to nose at the beginning of this generation. And then I think both of them looked around and be like, why we got to stop caring about what this other company's doing. We have to figure out what we're doing to grow, because beating the other company will actually not accomplish us anything. It's not going to get anything that we need in terms of what actually makes us money, what actually pleases the investors. We need growth. And so both companies have kind of abandoned those concerns for the big part. And I think, again, Jim Ryan got out while the getting was good. Jim Ryan positioned the PS5 in such a way that it looks much better, in a much better place than the Xbox. And now he doesn't have to figure out all these much more complicated, how do we grow the PlayStation business beyond the market of people that were just here deciding which console to buy. All right. Let's take a break. And when we get back, we got a few more headlines, including a little bit more from Sony. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, we are back. And actually, Jan, before we do anything else, have you ever heard of X-Men?
Yes.
Did you watch this trailer for X-Men 97 this morning?
I did not.
Would you mind if we did that real quick?
I would love that. This is going to play poor for audio listeners, but sorry.
You know, I'll have it play so they can hear the audio a little bit. But yeah, it'll play bad for audio listeners. Sorry, everybody. Let me get this
share your screen if you can.
Yes, I'm going to share it to you in just 1 second. Let me just get it framed up for everybody first. There's that.
For a little peek behind the scenes here, Grubb slacks me this morning saying, "Hey, we could watch the X-Men 97 trailer. Are you a fan of the X-Men?"
Now, I said X-Men cartoon, to be clear.
Yeah, X-Men cartoon. Sure.
But I guess I should have known based on timing.
And then I threw my phone at the ground. I laughed and guffawed. Scout fell over and rolled down a hill. And then we both looked at each other and laughed. And then I replied back, "Am I a mark for X-Men?"
All right, let's see. Can you guys hear this?
Series finale of X-Men next Saturday morning. Check your
There it
own
is.
listing.
Jan, you see it?
I'm grateful
Yeah.
have the chance to say goodbye. I am
Oh
proud
my God.
of you all, my X-Men.
Fate lies in our hands now. Now.
This has been the thing I've been the most excited for since they acquired Fox, Jan.
Oh.
We have to stay vigilant. The professor
Yeah, we do.
entrusted us with his dream.
They're gonna put
No matter how dark it is,
They're gonna do it.
we must believe in each other.
Oh, that's
We get this done by working together as a team.
Jeez, Bob, keep buzzing in my ear.
Oh, that's Logan's baby. Oh, sweet.
To me, my X-Men.
Yeah.
Magneto.
The last will and testament of Charles Xavier. Everything he built now belongs to me.
Okay, yeah, that looks actually really good.
Hell yeah.
I love that cartoon. And so I hope this new season, X-Men 97, starts with previously on X-Men. And then I'll get chills and I'll be ready to go. Very excited about that.
already got chills.
Yeah.
Man, for folks that want more X-Men content, I'd highly recommend checking out the current one of the current comic book runs. It's really good shit.
Really? That's fantastic to hear. I'll check that out.
They're Grubb, you're familiar with I know that this trope has been done before, but the Council of Ricks, right? In Rick and Morty, of like a bunch of Ricks fighting each other.
Right.
Imagine that, but a council of Sabretooths.
Okay. Well, that's even better. That's way better.
Imagine a world where a bunch of Sabretooths get together and like, how the fuck are we gonna fuck with Logan this year? And then one of them is a Captain America.
Man. Okay, well, I'll check that out. I had Marvel Unlimited for a while. I should maybe get that back and catch up, and then see if I want to buy some of the new runs as I get caught up on all that stuff. All right, let's get back to the video game news. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 hits over 10 million copies sold. This is from George Yang at GameSpot. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 has officially exceeded 10 million copies sold on PlayStation 5, marking a new milestone for the game. According to Sony's latest earnings report, it says that Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man franchise has now sold over 50 million copies, which includes the PC ports. Mostly wanted to bring this in here as a reminder. These games are still selling very well. They are able to launch new things that are to PS5 exclusive and get to 10 million sold very quickly. It's not selling as fast as like Tears of the Kingdom, which got to 20 million very fast. Not much longer than what it took to Spider-Man here to get to 10 million. But like very few games are doing what Zelda has done with the last two entries in the Zelda franchise. And Tears of the Kingdom sold very, very fast. And there are more Switches out there than there are PS5s. So this is a very good number for Spider-Man 2. I think that they are probably over at Sony. Like, this Spider-Man continues to work. We are very happy Insomniac's going to be making that Venom game. That's probably going to cost half the price that it cost to produce these other games. And it's going to make us just as much money, probably very close to that. It's going to do very well. And then we're glad that they're working on X-Men and Spider-Man 3 and all this other stuff. They have got to want to replicate what has happened with Spider-Man at some of their other studios with other IPs. Is that even possible, Jan?
I don't think it is, Grubb. I feel like specifically with Spider-Man can either be a cash cow or a giant stinker, depending on how it is brought to the greater general audiences. Because fuckers love Spider-Man. And the thing is, people, fuckers as well, sorry to call y'all that, but that's what we all are today. Also love the X-Men. For the longest time, like Wolverine and Spider-Man were the two most popular Marvel comic book characters of all time until the MCU kind of rearranged that. I don't know within Sony's existing roster what they could adapt with other IP. I also don't know.
Britain says Madam Web.
Man, I'm a big fan of Dakota Johnson. Is all I will say.
You know, I didn't realize until recently that she's Don Johnson's daughter.
Oh yeah, Nepo baby.
Nepo babies are everywhere.
Hundo.
They're 100% out there. Yeah.
But like, I feel like Sony has a good roster of talent. I just don't know what IP would wind up working out that wouldn't feel like comic book exhaustion at this point. Like, Harry Potter's already being done.
Harry Potter, and there's more going to happen with Harry Potter. You know, they're probably going to go back and do another Lego game with Harry Potter. We were talking about that with Jordan yesterday, and that makes 1,000,000% sense. But like the ones that are obvious to us, they're obvious to these companies. I just don't think there's a lot of other ones out there that are like, oh, waiting to be tapped into. Tron's not going to suddenly take over or something like that.
No.
It really is like, you're right, it is X-Men. And I honestly think X-Men's primed to like come back in a big way. I think this show is going to like, you know, kind of start that off a little bit. But like the timing, when I look at the news, Jan, I'm like, man, I wish this makes me want to go read the X-Men. Something like deals with these topics in a way that like is digestible and moral and all this stuff. And I think X-Men will be in a good place where it's like, hey, the time makes sense for that kind of storytelling again. And people are going to be craving that. The list is very short. It's very short. And new IPs, you know, we talk about new IPs and it's like the deprecation of new IPs versus existing IPs that get licensed, because these companies have looked at it, they've done the math, and it is more expensive or just as expensive, but more risky to try to get a new IP off the ground. And so they're going to keep looking at other options that are out there, and I just don't think most of those are going to be anywhere near a Spider-Man. Obviously, they're not going to be Spider-Man, but even near it, I don't think that's on the table either.
Like, I'm trying to think, like, would you try and adapt The Boys to a video game? But even then, like, where in, like, The Boys show, like, do you play as? Do you play as Homelander? Do you play as, what's his face to try and take down the superheroes? Even like Gen V, where you're like pretty much an X-Men and like a young superhero, I don't know what approach you take to that. And then I don't know, you have a show like Invincible, and Invincible had a lot of heat coming out of season 1. Season 2 took a little bit, maybe a long bit of time to come out.
And there's only 4 episodes, right? We're waiting for the second half. I did catch up on those. That show fucking rules. God, Invincible is so good.
I love Invincible.
But like, you know, if they invested over time into like, okay, here's another Invincible thing, and I think they could build something up there where it's like these games are pretty big, but that's just not a guarantee. And the games would have to be very good to get to that point, I think. And if you're making a great game, that solves a lot of your problems just out of the gate, and that there's just beyond that. A lot of these franchises will struggle in a way that I think these companies know deep down that they're going to struggle. And yet, what other choice do they have? That's like, this mitigates some risk, so it's better than nothing.
Grubb, excuse my ignorance here, but does Disney's deal with Epic in like the magnitude that is of like what, $1.5 billion? Does that affect Disney's working relationship with other studios at all? Or is this just like a specific focus of that? No,
so the way, and it especially wouldn't work that way because Disney is investing that money into Epic. So it would be the one like calling the shots a little bit there. It's not going to be calling the shots. Like, it still only has a minority stake in Epic, but it's like the money is going in that direction, which would give the leverage to Disney to be able to do even more if they wanted to. But no, there is no, as far as we're aware, with the partnership to produce games inside of or alongside Fortnite that are related to Disney, none of that is to the exclusion of licensing those games elsewhere. That still seems to be one of the main video game business priorities over at Disney.
All right, John Drake, if you're listening, get ready to cut the check. I don't know if to me or to whoever. Bluey, Astrobot.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, even like a Bluey like Sackboy Super Mario 3D World style game could be really cool because you got the 4 family members, so you do like a 4-player co-op 3D Mario World sort of thing. That would be very cool. Let's hit these last 2 stories real quick. We're going to jump ahead to Embracer confirms it's now laid off 1,400 employees and says more cuts could be coming soon. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC, basically just kind of putting a number to all the stories that we've seen, and that they're not done yet. And they're not done yet because 1,400 employees, while a lot, this next headline kind of puts it really in perspective. Embracer has canceled 29 unannounced games between July and December. 29 games that weren't even announced have been canceled, and the people working on those mostly have likely been either laid off or waiting to see what's going to happen. Maybe they've been moved somewhere else, but there are a lot fewer games for these people to be working on. And that's where we're at right now in the industry, is that we were coming out of the pandemic and everyone said we got to be making games. And now everyone is retreating, especially Embracer, who is in an especially bad circumstance here. I don't know, Jan, how's all that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel good at all, Grubb.
Yeah, me neither.
It doesn't make me feel good at all. And I think Embracer can go get fucked.
Embracer can go get fucked. God, I remember, like right from the beginning when it happened, it's like, hey, can I talk to the CEO about like the strategy here? And no response. Well, they like, we'll see what we can do, and then they never ever talked and never explained it. And now it's so obvious because they didn't have one. They did not have a strategy.
Embracer, what about you? Embrace these nuts.
Fucking got them. All right. Poll question from yesterday. How do you think backward compatibility will work on Switch 2? Is this the right? Let me refresh this. Make sure this is. That's right. Yes. There we go. How do you think backward compatibility will work on Switch 2? It won't work at all. 13%. 12% says it will generally require users to pay for an upgrade. 52% says it will work for every game, but they won't run better. And 23% says it will work for every game, but they will run better. This is yesterday's. Okay, well, this one as well. I'll answer this live in front of everybody. How are you feeling about upcoming PlayStation 5 games? Yeah, there we go. This one's from 23 hours ago. I have plenty to look forward to, and I don't have a lot to look forward to. I'm going to go with I have plenty to look forward to because of the third-party games like Final Fantasy. 36% agree with me. 64% say I don't have a lot I'm looking forward to. I think this is the... we talk about like fanboys and like huge fans of these platforms. From the PlayStation side of things, for months now, there's been some anxiety out there about, hey, they have not. I've invested a lot of money in this platform. I bought it right away. I've been playing a lot of these games, but in the past, you would give us a showcase and say, hey, this game's coming out 2-3 years from now, and you haven't even really done that in a very long time. Beyond like the confirmed. God, now it's a Wolverine game. The Wolverine game, Beyond Wolverine, which we don't know when that's coming. There's not a lot of insight into what else PlayStation's doing in terms of first party. And when you look at it, a lot of that makes sense because Naughty Dog's game is probably years away. A lot of those other studios are like, you go one by one. It's like, that's probably years away. That's years away. Maybe Ghost 2, and this is one we talk about a lot, Ghost of Tsushima 2. That one could be coming at any year now, but it's not coming this year, or even early part of next year. So it's like, okay, yeah, that while that one felt like it maybe could happen, that's also not too surprising. Maybe taking 5 to 6 years to make that game is what they're going to do, and we're going to end up in a situation where it comes out later in 2025. But I don't know. How about you, Jan? Are you feeling like, hey, the PlayStation 5 is getting some use and will continue to get used throughout this year?
It is currently getting some use and it will continue to get used throughout this year.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think these console warriors need to put their shields and swords down. Just go touch some grass.
Yep. Yeah. There
are plenty of games out there.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima 1 is not even on PC yet. That's a good point. Like once that happens, things will stop. That'll probably signify that they're getting ready to ramp up to some of those other things.
And hey, if you are one of those people that have only bought a PS5 for the one game, there's a couple other games out there that you can only get on the PS5. Check those out. Those are good.
100%.
Valhalla? Yo, I feel like it was a crime putting Valhalla out when it did, because there's some sleeper banger story bits in that game that I really suggest people seek out. Kratos is even more of a sad father.
Oh shit! New next gen sad dads out there. Let's go.
Yeah.
New poll question: are you picking up Mario versus Donkey Kong on Switch? I'm just interested. Let us know, yes or no. We'll talk about that on the show tomorrow here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, Jan, we have let's see, later today, voicemail dump truck. We doing that thing? Are we gonna do that thing?
I gotta look at. I feel like I should have planned that thing more. Maybe we
we'll see. We'll definitely have voicemail dump truck, everybody. We'll definitely have UPF tomorrow. We're gonna be playing a grab bag of games.
Maybe.
What's up?
Maybe because I know Bailey wants to pop up on a thing. Maybe I'll just get her for UPF and or BCR.
Okay, yeah, we could throw a lot of stuff into UPF. We could just go an extra half an hour or something, and play 5 games or something like that.
Maybe we do that. We do that, and
check
we
out
tack on
that Tomb Raider collection and stuff like that. There's a lot happening. So
oh shit,
a lot to catch up on.
I might have gotten code for another game that I'm very curious about. Grubb, remind me to send something. I'll just send it to you after this. But there's a game that I came across that screams you.
Oh, okay.
It reminds me of the Case of the Golden Idol. I'm like, well, this is a Grubb game for sure.
Ooh, that's my jam. That's my shit. I can't wait. The next one I'm most looking forward to is Expeditions, a Mud Runner game. And this morning in Slack, Nikki's like, hey, let me know if you guys get a hold of that one. I want to play. I'm like, yeah, listen, you're going to have to fight me for it first. But 100%, if you want to talk about that game, I will talk about that game with you. I am very excited about Expeditions. It comes out, I think, a couple days before my birthday. Everything's turning up Jeffrey's birthday this year. I turned 41 for some reason, and everyone's like, yeah, we're going to give him everything he ever did.
We're going to reward that.
We're going to reward that specifically. Yeah. He made it. All right, Jan, thank you so much for talking with me about video games today, man. I really appreciate it.
It's my favorite way to start a Thursday.
Thank you all for hanging out with us today. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. And may a Nintendo Direct happen so you don't yell at me.